Grand day, gems and jewels, gods and goddesses. Grand day. What a wonderful time to be on the planet. I am your host, Corinthia Peoples, and this is Power in My Pivot. Power in My Pivot is a live broadcast where we discuss how ordinary people such as me and you become extraordinary in our own right through the power of pivoting. Pivoting is a term used for turning, changing, and moving our lives from the prescribed direction of mass societal roles and conditions. This is a show for men and women, kings and queens, dukes and duchesses, and everyday people. The time has come for us to control our own narrative and set the stage and lead by example. On today's edition of Power in My Pivot, we will continue to raise and honor the divine feminine. We're having a discussion about the impact as well as the glory of being a womb man in a man's dominated industry with Miss Shirley Hubbard in honor of the divine feminine. Stay tuned. Power in My Pivot is a discussion where we unpack the details of our pivot, honey, our transformation, whether voluntarily or circumstantially or just out of sheer survival. It is a talk of our soul's journey and our evolution as people, as humans, from going from one stage of our lives and our existence to the next stage of our life and our existence. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the room. This is an participatory dialogue, so feel free to drop comments in the stream. Let's talk, let's have a dialogue, and let's pivot. For those who are with us, thank you so much for being with us. If you have not already, please like and share this live broadcast. Give us a like, thumbs up, and subscribe to the Corinthia People's YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. That would be great. So, our special guest today is Shirley Hubbard, as I call Miss Hubbard. Miss Hubbard is a native Mississippian. She's raised the 5 children in the San Francisco Bay Area. She has been married for 50 years. In 1981, Ms. Hubbard jumped on the opportunity of a 4-year carpentry apprenticeship program. For 18 years, she has been in construction carpentry and 20 plus years as a business owner entitled Miss Professional. And for 29 years as a transit operator. She has operated 75-foot LRV trains, 60 and 40-foot buses, and operated historical PCC streetcars, honey. Now, without further ado, let's welcome our guest, Miss Shirley.
Hello, Sister Corinthia.
Hello, Miss Hubbard. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm blessed.
Yes, we are. We are. I am so glad you could make it. And you're here on the show. I'm so glad and honored to have you.
I'm honored that you chose to have me. I love you.
I love you back so, so much. So, so much. You know, I was just so we're talking about being in non-traditional roles, right? Being in a man's dominated field. And I was just thinking of the time that I called you up and I had to take down my this thing that I have, well, that someone had built for me to put my jewelry inside of. I had a display box and I had to take it down. And you came over with your power tools, baby, and you took all that thing down. And I was just so, I've always admired a woman who knew how to use her hands and work with tools and build things. Like, I respect people that can build things. So you are definitely one of those women that I had to have on the show in honor for Women's History Month.
Thank you, darling.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Hubbard, what were your occupational choices when you decided on carpentry? And that, so it was in 1980s, right? And so
Yeah.
70s, you were, you know, how old were you? And what were, as a Black woman, as a woman, what were your choices in terms of work?
Before I became a carpenter, I was a nurse's aide. I was a janitor. I was a housekeeper. I was a teletype operator, um, EKG technician. But I realized I was not happy with what I was doing. I knew I was happy creating, and I was a stationary engineer. And so once the apprenticeship opened up, my heart opened up, and I've
Wow.
never looked back.
So is that something that you, like, growing up young, did you put together things and create?
Always, always. My grandfather was my lead person in life, and around the house, he was 77 when he adopted me, and I worked along with him and the boys that was there, fixing the fence, fixing the barn, repairing the house, repairing the roof, whatever was needed. I was fixing on the car. I was there, and it came easy. It was creative. It was creativity, and I learned that didn't have to be confined to traditional women's work, typing, cooking. I couldn't. It was mundane for me because I did those things every day in my family. So I needed to do something that wasn't domestic engineering.
Mm. So, you know, you're part two of a three-part series that I'm doing that honor the feminine divine, and specifically women who have broken the molds and have gone outside of what, quote unquote, a woman's job is. Because truly, the industry that you engaged in, that you emerged into, was a man's industry,
Yes.
especially
Yes.
in the 80s, right?
I was one of the first among the first women that was pulled into the carpentry field. I worked for contractors like Cahill, Amorosa, Perini, some of the largest contractors in San Francisco. Uh, I went to work for a contractor. They put me on a pair building in San Francisco, 16 stories up. Because I was apprentice, they did not give me a safety belt. And I had to walk I-beams. I-beams are stationed 36 feet apart, 36 inches apart. He put me with his son, Paul, who was over 6 feet tall. So his scribe was 36 inches plus. But I managed to hop them I-beams, and by the grace of God, that day Cal OSHA came on the site. And when they realized that I did not have a safety belt on, they shut the job down. And old man Cahill said, I don't want women's on my job because they distract women's. They distract the men's. They can't do the work. So as a woman coming into the trade, I had to pull my weight. I had to pack the lumber that was required. I couldn't carry 1 2x4. I had to carry the 3 or 4. Whatever the man was doing, I had to do it. And I got home at night and I nursed my wounds. I nurse my bruises on my body. You're gonna get damage. You're gonna get broken skin. You're gonna get calluses. And so I stepped up. I did whatever they had to do
Mm-hmm.
uh, to maintain. And to this day, I still have respect in the industry. I have sisters that came through it after me, and they acknowledged that I was their forerunner because I knew if I did not do it, it was gonna be hard for the other sisters that came through. We
So,
would have to. I'm sorry. We would have to go into the outhouse where the men would draw their sex toys, their sex pictures on the wall. I had to ignore them. The men would get together and they make their sexual comment. I had to ignore them. They never verbally pushed it toward me. But it's a man's world.
so how did you deal with that? Like, do you feel like you had to stuff your sexuality as a woman? Do you feel like you
No,
had to like
no,
not be woman? Because
no.
sometimes you bubble over.
No, I was who I was because, like I said, for reality, I could do it. That's why I was raised on the farm. Uh, if someone pissed me off at the job that night, I went home and painted my nails red. I
Wow.
would come to work the next day with lipstick on. That was letting them know there's a woman behind all this. So I never denied my femininity. That was never an issue for me.
Wait, this is so funny because, like I said, you were part 2 of a 3-part series.
Yeah.
And there's a commonality between you and other women who like have been forerunners in this space.
Yeah.
You all seem to possess this duality of understanding of what it is to be in a man's world and then what it is to be a woman.
Yeah.
Like, you're clear about that. And
Yeah.
you know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Was it money? Did money drive you to go into carpentry? What
No,
was the driving force?
giving my children a better life, moving out the projects, having a better car. My children can go to college. It had nothing to do. It was an opportunity that the men's already had, and predominantly the Caucasian men's already had. And I refused to not allow an opportunity to be there to make my life better. I refuse to let anybody take that away from me. It was mine to have as well as anybody else's.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it had been dominated by men's, but times had changed. If
Yeah.
we're good enough to do all the other things we're doing, we're good enough to do that. And I've always said women need to play a part in building homes because women spent more time in them than men's.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you have a story of a time where you used your femininity? You used it for your advantage, or you played damsel in distress, or anything
Oh,
like
no, no. I worked on one job and it was hard for my brothers to see me being the woman that I was. I had one job and they gave me an apprentice.
that?
And when I would go to pick up lumber or I go to move something, I go to do something, he was always right there. Oh, let me do that for you. Hold up, brother. This is my job. You do you and I do me. You're not here to carry me. There were some brothers that felt, I don't want to see my sister work this hard. No, this is my job. And so and to this day, he and I have a relationship that is awesome. But like I told him, we're here for the same thing. We came to this job to provide for our families. And one thing in the trade is, and not just the trade, any job, you have to pull your weight. If you don't pull your weight, there's somebody that will.
So you had both. You had men who wanted to help you because you were a woman.
Yeah.
And then there were men who mocked you because you were a woman.
Of course. But I was very blessed. My brothers was with me and they taught me and they encouraged me. When I first got in, I had to learn how to manage money. I mean, you making over $200 a day. You're making hundreds of dollars a day. And so I remember one day I went to a brother and I was like, we got paid on Friday. By Tuesday, my funds were gone. I was like, can I borrow some money? He said, hold on, let me have a conversation with you. You should keep $100 in your pocket every day, because that's the kind of job you got. They taught me, you get here before anybody else get here. You know what you're going to do the next day when you leave today. So they taught me. I came in a time where the OG brothers that was on the job, I still love them, and most of them are gone. So it was, yes, it was a racial issue. Race was pretty much, but I never had a racial problem. Never. Because the contractors I worked with, they respected me. I had other sisters come in behind me. I tried to share, exchange knowledge. One contractor fired me because he expected me to meet with them in the morning at the coffee shop at 5:30 in the morning. Can't do it. Got to get my kids up, lunch fixed, and them off to school. Can't do it. And so after about 3 weeks into it, he's like, you can't hang with, and that's, men's have a tendency to be able to get out the house much earlier than we can. And so he said, I'm going to have to let you go. I said, no problem. And I went back to my union. My union rep was someone that helped me, encourage me in the trade. Don't worry about it. I'll send y'all another job tomorrow. So I was,
So it was for you. So you went in, you didn't. So do you feel like you had to knock down doors and gain your respect?
No.
Really?
No, because my reputation preceded me once I got into the trade. Contractors actually asked for me. I had one contract I worked for 3 years. I started out with him up in HP in San Francisco. He left that job. He said, I got a job in Nevada. I'll see you up there. And wherever he went, he always called me. I had a good relationship with him and his sons. If I said I got a teacher's meeting this afternoon at 3:30, okay, you can miss your lunch, which became repertory for me. I miss my lunch, I get off early. Don't take my break, I get off early. So I learned how to work the system, and it was understood. I never put my jobs, knew I had children that I love and I appreciate. There was days my oldest son would show up on the job site. And like, that boy's outside the fence, come in and tell him to come in and go to work.
Okay.
So, it was, like I said, I was honest, I was trustworthy, I was responsible, and I was accountable.
Yeah. So, Ms. Hubbard, do you think, I have two parts, and I want to give you these questions before they leave my brain. Do you think that it had something to do with you being in San Francisco? Like, I'm sure, do you know other women who were in your trade that were in other parts of the United States that had a different story than yours?
No, I only know the women that was in San Francisco. I know two particular sisters that work with me, and both of them actually followed me through to my next job, Muni. I don't know any sisters outside the state, outside the Bay Area. I wish I could have. I encourage, like my granddaughter, my oldest granddaughter, she got into construction and she loved it. Because her life has, with the babies, she hasn't got it organized, but that's her choice. Like, she's like, Nana, if you got some work to do, call me, I'm over there. And so I encourage women with my own grandchildren. It's a good feel. It's a good opportunity. It's not like an office. It's a different kind of world. And for me, it made me even stronger and made my life even richer. Because of my carpentry, I have a second generation carpenter who's a contractor in the state of California, and that's my baby boy.
So you did. So one of your children did follow in your footsteps.
Yes.
Did you teach him?
Yes.
Of
That's what
course.
mothers, yes. I'm still teaching, he has a project. He and I are constantly doing projects together now. And he'll say, Mom, this is what I got to do. What you think? Give me your ideas. So he said to me when he got his contractor's license, he's like, Mom, I want you with me. I don't want you in the field. I don't want you working, but I need your brain with me. And so it's a blessing.
It
And now
is.
we'll teach. Yeah.
It is a blessing. So, so you took the job because you had children to raise and you had to make a living.
Yes.
And you were not okay with just doing the traditional woman's role that society gave to us. I mean, literally, we was given a role by
Yeah.
society, and
Yeah.
some of us ate it up, but you spit it out. You spit
Yeah.
it, and you was like, "No, I need fresh air.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to be creative, working
Yeah.
with my hands." Because by growing up on a farm, you was outside a lot.
All day. All day.
So being inside was foreign to you,
And it still is.
and it still is.
Yes.
Wow. So Miss Hubbard, what when women tell you about their gripes, when I'm sure you hear women griping and complaining about being a woman. You have grandchildren, you have granddaughters, you have a daughter, you have adopted daughters, you have nieces. You get it all.
Yeah.
What do you tell? What's your advice to being a woman by her own right? Because you've also been married for 50 years.
Yeah. Just by being a woman, we are and most women don't realize, we talk the man and the woman. The woman is uniquely designed. The woman is different, majorly different from a man. A man is like a straight highway. A woman is like a highway with curves and mountains and valleys and hills, a scenery route. We are so vast, and if you don't accept your vastness, nobody else is. You have to not allow you set your boundaries. You don't allow somebody else to set your boundaries for you. You don't allow nobody else to set your limitations for you. God created you, and he created you with, most people don't realize he lives within us. And so you look at him and you see how vast he is. Then you can get a glimpse of how vast you can be. We have the tendency to allow other people's and other things and environment to box us in, to set our standards and our limitations and our boundaries. And it's not for me. It's not me. And I teach my daughters, I teach my granddaughters and my great granddaughters. There is nothing under the sun that you cannot do. But whatever you do, commit to it and be good at what you do. And so it's not just my granddaughters. I have 3 grandsons, and I have, I think, 11 granddaughters and 1 great grandson and 5 granddaughters. And it's awesome. It's really awesome. That's why I love you. That's why I love my sisters. Even though I'm where I am in life, my daughter is my sister. My granddaughters are my sisters. Every woman is my sister, and not necessarily, not just your skin color doesn't matter to me. If you're real, you are sincere about pursuing your goals and accomplishing life for yourself first.
Yeah.
You have to do it for yourself first. Like I say, for my children, but at the same time, my children are my energy. And so when they thrive, I thrive. Because in order for them to thrive, I am thriving. That's why I went into construction. Because construction, the money was awesome. At the time I went in construction, in 1980s, they started out like $18 an hour. When I left, they're at the $40 back mark, and that was what, 30 years ago. So now they have to be making $65 or more an hour. There are people in the trade that make $150, $200 an hour. And so it's a very lucrative industry. They got the best benefit. That's what they call a brotherhood. If you look at the logo, they call it a brotherhood. Now it's a family affair. Not only do they work together, they socialize together. And they encourage family picnics, family get together. They give out tickets at the baseball games to go to family day at the baseball at opening season. These are the benefits that are family oriented. I'm very family oriented. And so you look at what works for you as a woman and your extensions. During the time I worked as a trade, I never bought a car. My husband bought cars, but we has never been into the high-end cars.
Mm-hmm.
During the time I was in the trade, it was about my making and creating a family that thrive for life to do better.
That's rich. That is so rich. So, what would you say was the hardest part of being a woman? Was it was it the school part? Was there anything challenging about it? What was your hardest thing to learn
Uh,
in terms of
in carpentry, and we can only speak in terms of carpentry because carpentry it's a woodwork field, but it's also a mathematician field. You need to know your math, the footage in inches, square footage. You need to know math. You need to understand leverage. You're building a building. If you cut one stud too short, that whole building is going to shift. How what you're doing affect the whole structure. You have to understand engineering. You have to get some idea in engineering. You have to get some idea of blueprint reading in terms of what goes where. In terms of what was hard for me, carpentry as an apprentice was a two-part thing. I had to get so many hours on the job, and I had to get so many classroom hours. And the school will contact my contract and tell them, if you don't send her to class, we're going to drop her out the apprentice. Because I stayed on the job more than I stayed in the classroom. And so sometime I would have to actually the contractor say, Shirley, you got to be gone for 3 weeks. You got to go to school for 3 weeks. And I hated going to school for 3 weeks because I had to go down to Dublin Pleasanton. And so in Dublin Pleasant, it was on the site job. We were actually doing markup on the job. We was building wall. We build miniature houses. We was doing a lot. But the classroom, I would say, the hardest part in terms of the trade.
Interesting.
You carry a belt. You learn to wear a belt. And I'm not curvy. I don't have a lot of hips. And so my belt would always slide off of me because I was skinny. So I learned to wear suspenders to keep my belt up. Because in your belt, you got a 22-ounce hammer. You got your square. You might be carrying 2 pounds of 16 nails. You might be carrying some brackets. You're going to carry what you need on you. And so that brings extra weight on you. And so my biggest problem was, I'm always constantly was putting on my belt. And even now when I put my belt on, I'm constantly shifting my belt, because I'm not blessed with the bottom half of a curvy body.
Yes. Wow. Interesting, Ms. Hubbard. So when you were moving, so you had to wear these belts, these 20-pound things. Was there ever a time that you had a situation and you remembered something that you did in the kitchen, or that your grandma did in the kitchen, or your mom did in the kitchen, or just as a woman, and you kind of took that womanness and worked your way through whatever scenario or solution that you had to figure out?
In terms of the job, like I say, there'll be time we be doing shut offs, or we might be doing lock off. That's mean you putting down you sitting up a wall that has like a 2 or 3 inch bolt that goes through the floor, and you couldn't get the bolts on, so some good elbow grease would come in. You're gonna get some grease and put on that bolt and make it work. You learn how to you just balance and level stuff, but in terms of relationship with people's on the job, I think for me, people were sort of intimidated by me, and I don't know why, and I still don't know why people are still intimidated by me. Because like I say, going on a construction site, you figure out what is it I need. I need some good solid boots. I need some good solid pants, carpenter pants. I need this carpenter belt. I didn't go to work showing cleavage. I didn't go to work wearing jewelry. I always wear earrings. There might be days I might wear some earth tone lipstick, but if I really want to piss somebody off, I wore some bright red lipstick, some makeup. I just put it on thick. But for the most part, the men's like to have lunch together. When it comes lunchtime, you go on a construction site, they sit in hollers. I separated myself from because I knew that I know that anytime a female encroach into a man's zone, like a group of men's having lunch, you're going to get some slack. They're going to make unslide things. So I've learned that don't put people in a place for me to have to tap them on the head with this hammer.
Right.
Don't put them in a place where I have to let them know that I'm about my business. And so I will sit apart, and those that was comfortable with me will come to me. I respected that, before the woman got on the job, all the men sit together and they talk they trash and they did what men's do. Girl, I hit that girl up, man, I did this. Men's. I gave them that respect for that. And so I sit myself apart. And there would always be somebody that come to me and have lunch with me. And then before I know it, I had my own little group of workers sitting with me. And they knew that I couldn't come into the trade overnight. It's like, no, you can't write that dirty stuff in the bathroom. No, you can't. I didn't go into the trade with that. I went into the trade respecting what they was a condition to, and sit myself up so that they respected me. And they always respect me. They wouldn't curse around me. They wasn't their normal self around me. If I was in a building working, like we worked on a site where there was 150 units, I might have 5 units to myself working. So I'd be in there humming and singing and doing me. You go into another guy's building, he might be over there. Every time he hit a nail, he might be cursing out somebody. So when I went in that building, I would acknowledge him. Hey, Shirley coming in. All right, come on, Miss Shirley. So I had to let them know where I was and respect what they were until they got used to me.
I love it. I love it. So now you've been married for like a chunk of your life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking you decided to do carpentry work before you got married or after you got married?
I met my husband at 17. My husband and I have been in each other's life all our lives. And when I went in the trade, he was in my life. We was together. We was raising children. I worked the trade during the day. He would go to work. I get off at 3. He go to work at 3. He worked at night. This is how we raised our children. And so we complemented each other all our lives in our work schedule. Working construction in San Francisco in the early 80s, you would work 6-8 months out of the year. The rest of the time you off during unemployment because it rained a lot in San Francisco originally. And so when it rains, you have to be in a certain trade. Carpenters can work. Some plumbers can work. Some trades can work. Carpenters can work. It depends on where the project's at. My husband was always, I was blessed with a man that never complained about me. If that makes you happy, baby, do it. Are you okay with that, honey? Do it. He was never intimidated by me. In no way. And to this day, if something is broken in the house, honey, that it came in today. He said, baby, that door is not closing. He knows that she'll take care of it. And in a relationship, regardless of what your trade is, people compliment each other. My husband is an awesome accountant. He's an awesome book person. He's not a carpenter. He's not a trade person. He's a blue collar worker. So we compliment each other.
Yes, you do compliment each other. You do compliment each other. So I want to ask you then. Today is this month. We're in March 2021, and we're living in a very auspicious time. What are your thoughts about people handling truth versus falsehood? Like, do you think people deal with being lied to better than they deal with being told the truth?
I don't.
You personally don't. I don't
No.
either. I
Yeah.
personally don't. I personally, even if it's brutal truth,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd rather that. But in terms of the world, like typical people, the people that you've run across in your lifetime, over your lifetime, do you think people typically like falsehood over truth?
Yes. And that's nothing new. Basically, that's biblical. That's biblical. A man would rather hear a lie than the truth because the lie is colorful, it's exciting, it stimulates the flesh, it doesn't feed the soul. And so, unknowingly, people has the tendency to do that. And they do it with people they can do it with. Um, Very few people do it to me. And I've had the best of liars in my life. But one thing the liars always knew, I can lie to her and you can lie to me. And I was like, oh, okay. But I either already know the truth or I will find out the truth. And when I do, I inform you of the fact. Because me as a person, like I tell my grandchildren, you don't become an adult to be a liar, to be a cheat. You're an adult. You can be honest and straight up. People don't have to like it, but be honest, be truthful, be a straight person. Uh, but sometimes people rather hear all that, oh baby, oh honey, oh dear, oh whatever, because they think that makes you happy. But it goes back to the old saying, the water and oil don't mix, and the oil will always come to the surface. So a lie will always float to the top. I don't care how you wrap it, how you tell it, how it look, and how it's dressed.
I love it. I love it. What are some of the things that you got away with by being a woman? Come
Well,
on now, tell it.
you know, in order to grow, you're gonna have some hiccups. And if you choose to make those hiccups, those are your choices. That doesn't mean you have to publicize them. In our lives, we have come across people that we have interacted with that we have not necessarily been happy with that interaction. It doesn't mean you have to advertise it, but you take your lesson from it. I was blessed. I met my husband when I was 17. And I had a short span of 2.5 years of interacting with other males. And I learned early in life that what a real, true, honest man looked like. So in that 2.5 years of my interaction, I realized, you know what, this don't work for me. Let me go back and get what I had. I've had friends in my life that wanted me to be like them, and I took some action to become like them. And when I realized this doesn't work for me, I dropped the friends and changed the pattern. And so for me, I'm a quick learner. When things have happened in my life, I mean, we all got a Pandora box. Every human being has a Pandora box, and it's theirs. It's their private, personal Pandora box. I took mine and threw it off the Bay Bridge a long time ago. Because like I tell people, any secrets that I have, only me and my shadow know about it. My shadow don't talk. And so I closed the Pandora box and left it alone. I'm through with it. I keep life, like you said about the word transparent, I keep life real. Because there's a scripture in the Bible that says there's nothing that's happening today that has not already happened before. We think it's new. It's not new. It's just happened to be new for us.
We haven't done it.
We haven't experienced it yet. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. 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 Miss Hubbard.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about women today? Do you think we're on like the young? So you know how I'm Generation X.
Okay.
I think you're Boomer.
Vintage.
you're Boomer. I'm X.
Okay.
Then there's a millennial,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think there's Z.
Z's. Yes.
What do you think about the women now? Do you are women now being as resilient as we ought to be? I
Mm,
know it's a different time, especially you mentioned technology. We're in a
yeah.
technology age, but we're still human,
Yeah.
and we still have babies, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been saying that we were tasked with the divine duty
Mm-hmm.
to raise the children and love the men.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we're doing a good job at it?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, cool. If not, where's the breakdown?
The breakdown is the assumption that we as women from millennials to Zers, there are certain things in the recipe that do not change. We are still women's. We still have the babies. We're still 99% responsible for the babies and their livelihood. We are still the anchor that keeps the family anchored. We are still the Zers. Nothing has changed for the Zers than it has for me. It's a choice they've made. I made the choice to step up and do what I need to do. Whether they was there or not, whether I had or did not have, I did what I had to do. I needed to do, not had to do, I needed to do. Because first, I needed to be a role model for the children that I gave life to, which happened to be one daughter and another daughter. So I need to be a role model. I didn't need somebody else to be that. And so what is the breakdown is the assumption that something and someone is going to bail you out. That's not reality to me. The reality is this is your world. You're in it. You give it all you got. I don't care what your circumstances are. And that's one thing I appreciate what you're doing, because I do a class on a Monday and a class on Tuesday, and it consists of nothing but young women. And I tell them, they talk about it takes a village. When I grew up, women's collectively came together. Women's taught women's, encouraged women's, and that dropped off somewhere. For me, I'm back there. As a baby boomer is to me, I'm consciously aware that I have a responsibility to the Zers, to the X's, to all my sisters that come behind me, to help them understand you made the choice to become a mother, whether with a husband or without. Let's step it up. That means you got to do and provide what is needed for you and your child. It has, I often use this analogy. When God created the world, he created everything before he created man. But there is something similar in the recipe of his creation. Man has a choice. Everything else he made do not have a choice. We have to be consciously aware of our choices. And we have to think about our choices before they happen. In the transportation business, we follow something called the Smith system. The Smith system is saying, get the big picture. You go in a relationship, get the big picture. You decide to have a baby, get the big picture. 18 years, rest of your life. You decide to buy a house, get the big picture. Don't you, oh, I didn't know it was going to be this bad. Get the big picture. Know what to expect and be prepared and step up and do it. It's about making choices. I have a Zia, and I have, what are you? And I have an ex. I think she's more of a baby boomer than than, than an ex. She's so old in her own way. But I have to look at them and interact with them and respect where they are.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, encourage them. And I find that my Zia needs a lot of pushing, a lot of encouragement, because the word I can't comes in a lot. And I was taught, if you look in the dictionary, the word can't came before can't. So how you just gonna go to can't before you try can?
Okay.
You know?
Yes. Yes. So, Miss Hubbard, we're getting close to time. I have a question for you.
Okay.
What is your musical instrument of seduction?
I love jazz. Jazz is either the saxophone or the trumpet or the flute. And out of those three, I'm more inclined to go with the saxophone.
Mm.
It's something about the way the sound is like it floats out. I love Kenny G, Najee, um, Beasley. I love the saxophone, and like I say, I love the trumpet. But the saxophone give me a variety of what's the word I want to say? I don't want to say erotic sounds,
Mm-hmm.
but a variety of sounds that's at different levels in different places.
Hey, so it's the notes.
The notes,
That
yes,
note can take you anywhere. It can take you on
yes,
a ride. I
yes,
love
yes,
it. Miss
yes.
Hubbard, I'm going to call out some names. I'm going to call out 3 names of 3 women. And I want you to tell me what comes to mind first. Just what's the first word that just there. I don't want you to think about it. I just want you to blurt out what comes to mind. Harriet Tubman,
Strength,
Kamala Harris,
determination.
Nina Simone.
Ooh, I got chills. Um,
That's it. I got chills.
I got
That,
chills.
that's it.
Chills.
You got
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah. So Miss Hubbard, this is a salute to the divine feminine. And I feel like I've coined women who have broken the mold and who pick up tools and do a man's work as the divine warrior feminine. There's a warrior spirit about that kind of woman. Whether or not, and it goes deep with the woman who chooses to make it her profession. It's also in a woman who can still get on a ladder and fix stuff in her own home, right? But the ones who choose to make it a career, to enter the industry, is how you've chosen to clothe yourself and feed your family through holding tools. I salute you.
Thank you.
I salute you, divine warrior feminine.
Thank you.
I know that you work with youth and you're doing workshops can you talk about the workshops and then where people can find you?
Because I've been married 50 years plus, I do a marriage class on a Mondays on Zoom with Young Wise, Marriage 101. On a Tuesday, I do a Bible lesson with sisters. You can reach me on Facebook, and that's Shirley, Shirlee, McGee Hubbard, Magee, last name Hubbard, Hubbard, on Facebook. Or you can email me at mrsmahubbard, the number 1, at att.net.
Yes, awesome. Ms. Hubbard, thank you so much for joining the show and sharing pieces of of your divine feminine with us. You just can't make this stuff up.
I love you.
Thank you so much. Hang out backstage, and I want to say goodbye to you before you go. Woo! Child. I am better. I am better by knowing Miss Hubbard, by spirit, the supreme, however and whatever you want to call your God. But I feel so rich by having Miss Hubbard in my life. You can't make this stuff up, baby. This is a salute to the divine feminine. Yes. You know, women have been given a hell of a rap, but the women I'm talking to, baby, I hope you listening the way I'm listening because I'm getting a whole nother narrative around who we are as women. You know, on this show, we don't just talk about the problem, we render a solution. And this week's health tip is to be all and whomever your divine feminine wants you to be. Because the constant thread that I've heard, and this is part 2 of 3, is that the women that I've interviewed, they have taken life on their own terms. They've discovered who they were and then made life work for them based on who they were. They didn't fit into a box. They figured out what box they were and then went and went to that box, right? So the health tip is to make your own box. Do the thing that when you were little that you always loved to do. I always say that that's the piece right there. If we go back to what we did when we were little, that's our purpose. Somewhere in there is our purpose. So that is our help tip today. What inspired me to do Power in My Pivot, to do this edition of Power in My Pivot, was to open the space for the divine feminine, to simply honor the divine feminine, the woman. It does take a village to raise a child truly. But with joined, connected feminine energy, I mean, anything is possible. You know, the Native American women withheld sex from their men in order to stop the war. That's how powerful the divine feminine truly is. Power in My Pivot is a live broadcast that happens every single Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Central, and 2 p.m. Eastern. Kings and queens, let's pivot from basic to bona fide and always remember that nobody is better than you, and you are no better than nobody. Said to me by a wise man, my grandfather. Until next time, just always remember there's power in your pivot.